Welcome to Chronicles of Old Singapore. This is Dr Loh KS here, and I speak to people about their memories of Singapore before it became a global city. Very happy to have with us today Mr. C. Kunalan, one of the great sportsmen in Singapore's history. Hi, Mr. K, how are you today?
Yep, I'm okay, but a bit stressed out with all this technology.
We had a little adventure just now. Everyone knows Mr. K's great achievements in the various sports competitions, the athletics competitions in the 60s and 70s. All the information is on Wikipedia and the internet, as well as the official websites on Singapore sporting history. So, am I right, Mr. K, that you took part in 5 Asian Games, 2 Olympics, and many Southeast Asia / Southeast Asia Peninsula Games?
Okay, yes,
Is that correct? Is
yeah,
the internet correct? Uh, you have won 15 SIP medals, 5 Asian Game medals. Your speciality are the 100 meter, 200 meter sprints. But I think your pet race is the 400-meter relay. You were Sportsman of the Year in 1968 and 1969. And in 1968, there was a very special year because you set the national record for the 100 meters at a time of 10.38 seconds, which stood for 33 years until 2001 when UK Sham
yeah,
broke it. Right. Is this all the facts correct?
yes, so far.
Is there anything I missed
Thank
out?
you. No,
So I have many questions to ask you today, and I want to get to know the man behind the records and the numbers, as well as the history of racing and running in the 60s and the 70s. Could you maybe share the story of how you got to take part in your first race?
okay. When after my
Um,
colleague in
mm,
Tiong Bahru Primary School by the name of Lim IQ, he had told he had asked me whether I could run in the relay for the Teachers Training College (TTC). Mm, and 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 then of course I told him I have never done a relay at all, because in school I ran the mile, 1 mile open, and that's it. And so he showed me how to pass and receive the baton on our school field at Tiong Bahru Primary School. And then at the same time, he had also informed the coach of the Teachers Training College athletics team that he was inviting me to be one of the relay runners, because the other relay runners were actually not sprinters but rather middle distance runners, and so um, I suppose I was faster than the middle distance runner, and so that's how I became involved with athletics as a relay runner for Teachers Training.
right. At this time, you were a teacher at the Tiong
I
Bahru
was a teacher.
School, right?
Yes.
So you mean to say you've never run competitively before in your school days?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. Uh, yes. That's it. You see, because when I was in school,
Yeah.
uh, the first 2 years in secondary school, there was no sports at all because the field was in was not in good condition. It was a new school, so the field was not in good condition, and the ministry had not taken over the field. And so we in the school in Sec 1, Sec 2, we had PE on the timetable, but never once did we have any PE classes. And then in the when I was in the third year, the field was given to the school, and the school accepted it, and the teachers, they were fantastic. So they said, okay, we must have a sports day. And our first sports day was in 1958, and it was a combined sports day. We combined with Crescent Girls School. And I think that was the only time that the girls came over for for the sports combined sports day. But that's how um, that's how. Oh yeah, but before that, I also thought that was a sprinter, and so I went down for the house selection. But after the 100 yards, at that time there was no 100 meters. We were using the yards. In the 100 yards, I was left behind by all my house mates, and so, but the teacher in charge of this house, his name was Mr. Ratnam, and he said, "I will put you in the race for the sports day," and that race was the 1 mile open. The 1 mile is 1,600 meters. 1 mile open. But the 1 mile open was a very popular event in the 50s, because around the world, the top runners, they were trying to break the 4 minute barrier. And so it was very exciting. And so many schools had the mile race as one of their events. And usually they will put it as the first event of the sports day, like an opening ceremony kind of thing. And I believe that they did that as an open event, not as a race where people had to qualify to get in, because nobody was keen to run 1 mile in those days. And so I was in the 1 mile race. And I remember in the when I was in secondary 3, and my first sports day, I ran a mile and I came in third. And then the following year, the housemaster said, "Okay, this is the race for you." And so I'm back in the mile. And when I was in Sec 4, and this is my final year in school, and I come in first. I come in first in the mile, and that is my my introduction to athletics, the mile, which is like 1,600 meters. And I never did any sprint.
Except that secondary 2, right? When you said you were left behind. The
Uh,
100 yards. Was that the 100 yards?
100 yards, yeah. But yeah, in the heats. No,
In,
not in the heats, all right. It's in the house selection.
mm,
The house had so many boys and were keen to run 100, 200, whatever. And so the housemaster said, "Okay, all come down." And then they make us run. And I was left behind.
huh,
And so I was not in the 100.
right. So how was it that later on you excelled in the 100 meters?
Yes. And so back to the story that I started just now with
Yeah,
Lim IQ
yeah.
inviting me to run for the teachers training college 4x100 relay, invitation relays. And I remember, as I said, he also had told the coach, Tan Eng Yoon, about me coming in for the relay, and we went to a few invitation relays, and uh, and uh, one day when we were at the teachers training college, and I was doing my usual football training, with the teachers union team, and the coach Tan Eng Yoon, he came to see me after the football training, and he invited me to come for athletics training at Farrer Park. So that's my connection to athletics.
Mr. K, can you talk about? I mean, when I met you at your house last week, you said you were running barefoot for a long time.
Yes, uh, I always was barefooted, uh, and 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 so even when I was in school running the sports day, I was barefooted, and then the following year, the school decided that I should represent the school in uh, in and they sent me for a district competition where the schools like Boys Town, a few good schools were there. And this race was at Farrer Park, and my team captain, he brought me to Farrer Park, and at Farrer Park, at in my race, which was the 1 mile race, uh, the gun went off, and uh, everybody started running. And after one round, I was behind. I was last. And then you had to go three, three and uh, 3 and 3/4 of the race, the track, 3 and 3/4 of the 400-meter track for the 1 mile. Sorry, the 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 1 mile was you had to go 4 rounds. Okay, or was it 5 rounds? I can't remember. But anyway, uh, after after the second round, I was last, and then in the third round, I saw one guy in front of me, and I overtook him. And then I remember telling myself, "Oh, I'm not last." But after I overtook this last runner, he dropped out of the race, and I was last again. And then we went for the final round, and I was last. And when the race finished, I was last in this competition, the 1 mile competition
Mm.
at the I think it was the Bukit Timah district, I think, or maybe the national meet. I'm not sure, but that was what happened for my mile race in my school year. In the following year
Mm.
uh, was my last year in school, and the school sent me to it was called a triangular meet. There was Gunning Singh, there was Raffles, and there was Outram and us. So four schools were having a competition, and it was held at the Raffles Institution ground in Bras Basah Road. And I was in the mile, and I remember coming in. I think I remember coming in second, maybe. Okay.
Second. Mm.
Uh, uh, no, it was not a mile. Sorry, it was not a mile. It was a 400 meters. I don't know why the school put me in the 400 meters
Mm.
for this competition, for this uh, four schools competition. And in this 400, 440 yards race, I came in second. But and you know the so that was uh, in my final year. Final year, and then a few weeks later, I was in the school sports day, and I came in first in the 1 mile open, and then I left school.
Yeah, you were in the Pasir Panjang Secondary School, is that right?
Yes, Pasir Panjang Secondary School.
So tell us about, I mean, your early running was in the mile or the 400 meters. So how did you become a short distance runner?
As I said earlier, my friend, my colleague from Tiong Bahru Primary School, Lim IQ, he was running for the Teachers Training College. And he had seen me, we were colleagues in Tiong Bahru Primary School. He had seen me play football with our school kids. And I maybe he thought that I was fast. And so he invited me to run for the Teachers Training College relay team. Later I found out that the others who were in the relay team were not actually sprinters but middle distance runners. And so I can understand why he asked me to run in the relay. But I remember telling him, I've never done a relay in my life. And so he said, okay, I will teach you. And he taught me how to pass and receive the baton. And we were doing it on our school field. And, and then we went for a couple of imitation relays. Some we did well, some we came in second or third. But at the same time, he had informed the coach of the Teachers Training College that he was asking me to run instead of the middle distance runners, run in the relay. And one day, this coach of the Teachers Training College, Tan Eng Yoon, he was also the national coach at that time in the 50s and 60s. And so he had one day when I was at the Teachers Training College ground training football, when I finished the training, he came to see me and he said that he would like me to join the athletics training at Farrer Park. And that is how I became involved with the sprints by taking part in the relay. But actually, I, I didn't join them as soon as he asked me to. But 6 months later, I was walking along the corridor of the Teachers Training College, and he had come up the corridor from the other side, the other staircase, on the other side of the corridor. And we were walking towards each other. And I remember telling myself, I'm sure he's forgotten about me. I'm sure he has forgotten about me. And then we were facing each other. And he said, why haven't you come? And then I tried to give some excuse. And then he said, listen, I can recognize potential when I see it. I didn't know what he meant even. I think I never heard of the word potential even. But he said, you have potential, you come down. And then I said, but then they are all national athletes. How can I come to join the national athletes? And he said, the national athletes, they all have gone for a competition in Sarawak, in Kuching, Sarawak. And he said, you come down and I want to train you. And then, but to this day, I also remember, I think the main reason why I decided to go down was not because I had potential or anything, but Mr. Tan Eng Yoon was going to be my teaching supervisor. And he would come to my school to observe me teaching 9 times that year. And that will decide whether I pass or fail my teaching career. And so I think I decided that I should go down. And so I went down. And then I remember a few sessions for maybe a couple of weeks. And he showed me what to do. I remember one thing very clearly. He said my left hand was going like this to the sideways. And he said, stand in front of the mirror and do this action. And I remember doing this action in front of the mirror in my room. And then when the team came back, there was a competition. And I can't remember what is the name of the competition, but he put me in to the 100 yards race. And then I I came in third. And that is how I stayed. I switched from football to athletics.
Yeah, right. You were playing football first, wasn't it? That was your first sport, really. And you were a winger, you told me.
Yes, I was a winger because I was very fast and they needed a winger. So they put me on the wing. And when I get the ball, I would speed down the side and then center the ball. And um, that I did a lot of training for that under the teachers training college football coaches. They were also the lecturers, and I remember two of them, Mr. Lau Teng Chuan and Yap Bun Chuan. They were the ones that got the team ready for taking part in our football league. And I remember we were in Division 4, which was the lowest division at that time.
Did you score a lot of goals or make a lot of assists?
Uh, I think I may have scored a couple of times, yeah, but mainly assists, I think. But generally, we were not a very strong team. And so the score line was always very low. Uh, and I think I remember scoring once or twice. Yeah.
Can I ask you, I mean, football and running are two very different sports, right? I mean, football is sport team based, and running is very much about your own conditioning and preparation. Um, did you have to make an adjustment, to the sprints?
I'm not sure whether we can say whether we can call it any adjustment. I just remember, okay, so I'm now in the athletics team, and I just switched and I went down for training, and we trained 7 days a week. And I also started strength training. We did weight training, and I remember we did weight training in the garden of somebody's house because at that time there were no uh, gyms anywhere. The only gyms were I remember, in the YMCA where there were bodybuilders. So ours was in a garden of a house near Farrer Park. And the owner of the house was good friends with Tan Eng Yoon. And he said, okay, I will let your athletics people come and use our weights. And he was in the garden. All the weights were kept under the house. It was a big bungalow on a with a basement, and all the weights were under the house. And we would come and bring all the weights out. And in the garden there was a squat stand and then a bench, and whatever we had to do, we did it in the garden.
Hmm. Hmm. There's one
And there were
thing.
two rambutan trees in the garden.
There's
And I
one.
remember the
Yeah.
rambutans, one tree had red rambutans and the other tree had yellow rambutans. But we will not pluck even one rambutan because we knew that if the owner found out that we were plucking the rambutans, then he might say, okay, don't come back here anymore. And then weight training will be the end for us.
I remember in your book, you mentioned that training was a very important part of the preparation for you. Can you tell us about your approach, your mindset about training?
Okay, so when I started training, I I was I was very serious about training. Uh, I I guess it was the same in football. I was when I was in football, I was training every day, and so now in athletics, I also trained every day. Um, so I was very serious about training, and um, I remember also another thing. Some of the my teammates would tease me because they said that I was the type of person that if the coach says do 6 times, I would do 8 times. I'm not sure whether this was true, but this is something I remember also. Um, yes, I was serious about training. Uh, um, I would um, I would be there early and we trained, and maybe sometimes I would be one of the last to leave the track also. But I worked well with all the runners at that time, all the sprinters who were there, whether they were faster than me, about the same standard as I was, but we trained together. And I think that was an important factor.
Mm.
And I remember this very clearly. One of my teammates was Jagethesan. And Jagethesan, in the 1962 Asian Games in Jakarta, he had won the gold medal in the 200 meters. And in 1962, I was still playing football in Division 4. But when I came on the scene, Jaga was there. And he was the Asian Games champion. And he was training under Tan Eng Yoon also. And so I was training with Jaga. And I remember this on we did cross country training. And one of the cross country training days was on Sunday. Sunday morning, I would be at McRitchie Reservoir and Jaga would be there. And we would go on our cross country run. And it would be like 10 kilometers from the McRitchie all the way to the golf course and then all the way back again. Then after that, we would do some slope running at, at the McRitchie Reservoir. We would run up the slope to the grave and then walk down. And a few of those, maybe 10 repetitions. And then in the afternoon at 3 o'clock, we would meet at the Dorset Road house for our weight training. Then after the weight training, we would go to the track and do the track workout. And this was with Jagethesan, the Asian Games champion,
Mm.
and I was just a beginner.
At the
It was
time,
a fantastic experience.
did you hold him in high regard?
Yes, of course. You know, can you imagine? He was an Asian Games
Yeah.
champion, and it was such a privilege to be able to train with him, cross country, track, as well as strength training.
Can you tell us about his character? Jagathisan's character, personality. What sort of person was he?
Yeah, Jaga was a very humble chap. You know, he was an Asian Games champion and he was a medical student at the same time. And yet, uh, he let people like me train with him. Uh, Maybe I was also useful for him because then he could also push himself maybe because he was way better than all the others on the track, and maybe I'm one of those who could push him. But yeah, it was such a pleasure to train with Jaga, whether it was track training or strength training or cross country training.
You know, with the fellow runners, was there any rivalry? Very fierce rivalry between the top runners like yourselves.
Uh, No, I don't think there was that uh, rivalry, the sense of rivalry. But we were from different clubs. Some were from the police force, and some were from the Achilles track club, and some were from the Swift track club. Like I was in the Swift track club. Uh, at the same time, we were also running for the teachers training college track team. Uh, so we were all from different clubs, but we trained together. And yeah, I don't remember any time that we were uh, rivals during training. We, in fact, we helped each other in training,
Mm.
whether it was in the weight training area or on the track.
That's quite amazing, right? That's very remarkable. This willingness to help each other.
Yeah, when I think about those days, it's such a it is such a pleasure to remember those occasions when we trained together, even though we were rivals during competition.
Yeah. Can I ask you about your coach, Tan Eng Yoon? I mean, he gave you the advice, right, to move your arms the correct way and improve your running. What sort of coach was he?
Tan Eng Yoon, he was such a unique person. I, he had when he was a competitor, he was a hurdler as well as a triple jumper and a long jumper, and he was a champion. And I remember that that first year when I came on the scene, the first year and the second year in 1963. Uh, in 1963, we had just become Malaysia, and I remember that we all went for a competition in KL, and I think maybe it was the Malaysian Championships. And I remember this so clearly. Tan Eng Yoon, he still jumped for Singapore uh,
Mm.
in the triple jump. I can't remember, but I seem to remember this occasion when, wow, he was our coach. At the same time, he took part in the competition. And um, yeah, and then I was in the relay, and uh, I remember running in the relay team, and we came back, and that was the end in 1963. And then in 1964, we went as I was in the Malaysian team, and uh, and this was uh, we were at the Olympic Games in Tokyo, 1964, and I was part of the Malaysian team, and I was in the relay team. Yeah, and that was in 1964 when we were part of Malaysia, and then uh, in 1965 we separated from Malaysia, and then I ran for Singapore, and Jaga ran for Malaysia, of course.
Mm.
Although he was a medical student here in Singapore, but he ran for Malaysia.
Mr. K, can you talk about running barefoot? I mean, that is unheard of today, right? But in your times, were you the only one running barefoot, or was that quite common?
I think as far as the sprints was concerned, I was the only one running barefooted. But very soon, uh, I I came to possess spikes also. Uh, it was like this. Uh, my football friends, Joseph and John and Sadhu Singh, they were my football teammates. When they realized that, hey, I was a good sprinter, uh, Sadhu Singh brought me to a shop in Bras Pasar Road. In those days, Bras Pasar Road had a few sports shops, and this uh, they brought me to this sports shop, and they said, get a pair of spikes for this fellow. And the shopkeeper brought up a pair of spikes, and I remember this pair of spikes was $12. It it was a Torch brand made in China. It had four names. And I remember coming home with this pair of spikes. Then in my garden, just in front of me, where I'm sitting, was my garden at that time. Now, of course, it's occupied by a fish pond, but at that time it was a garden. And I remember putting on the spike and doing one sprint, and one spike broke because it had hit a stone in the garden. And but the spike was broken. One spike was broken, but that's it. That was my first spike. Then at the same time, we also went to a shop in Sungai Road. There was a cobbler there, and this guy, he puts our foot on a piece of paper, draws the outline, and a week later we'll go back and collect the pair of spikes. And I think it was like $7 or $8 for a pair of spikes made specifically for my foot. And so that was my uh, spikes which I used for training, and also the spikes that had one broken nail. So these two pair of spikes were used for training. But I remember this also. My coach gave me Adidas 9.9 pair of spikes, and I would keep this especially for my competition. So I had three pairs of spikes at that time.
What shoes were you wearing?
Shoes?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, yeah, I think the shoes were made by this cobbler in Sungai Road. Uh, yes, I remember this pair of shoes also made by this cobbler in Sungai Road.
So in those days, there's no such thing as sponsorships.
Not yet,
You have to get your
but
own.
but I remember this occasion. My coach brought me to this shop uh, in Robinson Road, and uh, there he um, this shopkeeper, he gave us a pair of Puma spikes. Yeah, and so that was in 1966 when we had I had qualified for the Commonwealth Games to be held in Jamaica, and so now I had a pair of uh, spikes, Puma spikes.
So it's very interesting, right? So in those days, do you get any kind of financial or material support? You know, you were an amateur athlete, but you still needed to spend money. You know, it takes up your time. What kind of support were you getting?
Um, I don't think we had any financial support. Uh, of course, we had training facilities, and we had the best coach. Yeah, the national coach was coaching us, uh, and uh, yep, and I think that's it. We didn't have any monetary assistance,
Was
but
there any incentive?
No, there were no. The incentive was, to be able to represent your country.
Tell us how important that is for you, right? To represent Singapore.
I think it was a fantastic thing, isn't it? At first, I'm playing football for the Singapore Teachers Union in the Division 4, and now I am a national sprinter, and I'm in the top among the top four, and I'm running in the top four in the Malaysian team, and then when we left Malaysia, I'm the top sprinter in Singapore. And this is 1966. I'm representing Singapore at the Commonwealth Games. And then when we come back, the most important race was going to be the Asian Games in 1966 in Bangkok. Can you imagine me, a village runner, running barefooted, and now I am going to Thailand to represent Singapore at the Asian Games.
That was a big
And
event.
I remember also a week, a few days before the actual Asian Games, we had a minor competition, and there were a few sprinters from a few countries, and we were doing the 100-meter sprints. And I remember uh, coming in first in my particular race. It was a mixed thing, but it was just many 100-meter races, and I came in first in my race, and then it was time for the 100 meters heats. And I remember um, coming in first in my heats, and also in the semi-finals coming in first. And then it was going to be the final. And I remember this is 1966, and we are in the race, and and the all the rivals were there. The Asian Games, 100-meter champion from the Philippines, he was there. Then Jager, the the Asian Games 200-meter champion, he was there. So um, and and the the starter gave us the command in the Thai language, Kaute, then Rawang, and then bang, the gun goes off, and we are off. And uh, I remember I was leading. I can't imagine. I was the fastest starter in Asia, and I'm leading the 100-meter runners, and we are going. Uh, when I remember, I was leading all the way, and right at the end, I remember, yes, I was getting tired, but I was leading, I was in front, and I remember putting my hands up like this, and instead of leaning forward, I was just upright. And then my friend Jager, he had he had although he was behind me, he had chasing all the way. He was that kind of a fantastic sprinter. And then he dived at the end, and he his chest was in front of me, and he got the Asian Games gold medal. And and the silver medal was won by uh, Ijima from Japan, and I got the bronze medal.
Mm.
at my Asian game, my first Asian game.
How did you feel about that? Were you disappointed or were you satisfied that you had done your best?
Yes, I think I must have been uh, ecstatic, I think, because, I'm such a newcomer to the whole arena, and I had got an Asian game bronze medal. Actually, sorry,
Mm.
in that 1966 Asian Games, I came in second.
Mm.
I was the silver medalist.
Mm.
Okay, Jaga got the gold, and I got the silver medal. This is the 1966 Asian